From is a somewhat new series available on Paramount Plus, where people end up trapped in this mysterious town, and every night they have to take shelter from monsters that come out of the woods to hunt them down and kill them. Now, if you're a horror fan like me and you haven't been put onto this series yet, I highly recommend it. It has a great cast of characters that you are definitely going to fall in love with and then spend the entire night crying yourself to bed as they are brutally and unexpectedly killed off one by one. On top of that, the writing is just utterly phenomenal. It's got one of those writing styles where when one question is answered, 3 more pop up, and it keeps you utterly glued to the screen and wholeheartedly invested in the story. And though I eventually want to cover the series as a whole on my channel, right now today I really only want to discuss episode 1 of season 3 because it's probably one of the most tragic first episodes I have ever seen in any series. Hello. It's Jamal here from the Editing Dungeon. I realized while I was grabbing B-roll and screenshots for this video that the plotline that I'm about to discuss in this video actually takes place over episodes 1 and episodes 2 from season 3. It just so happens that writing a script purely based off of memory sometimes causes you to make a little oopsie daisy. So yeah, that's a little just caveat for the whole video. This is actually going to be episode 1 and a little bit of episode 2's plotline. My bad. Now, obviously, there is going to be a ton of spoilers for both this episode and the series as a whole, as I will need to cover some of the events that have happened in past seasons so that those of us who haven't been watching are kind of caught up on, you know, how we got to this season 1 of, or the season 3 episode, or the season, the episode 1 of this episode 1 of season 3. Jesus Christ, words, am I right? So to make sure we're all on the same page here, From centers around this anomalous town where people from all over America end up stranded after coming across a strange tree that happens to fall across the road while they're out on a road trip. Now, once they have driven past this tree, they are essentially trapped in the town with any attempt to leave via the roadways, causing them to just drive back into a circle back into town. The town itself has a small population of everyone who has been trapped there and have managed to survive, with a pseudo-government running things, consisting of a sheriff named Boyd Stevens, a priest named Father Cautry, and a sort of like community leader named Donna Rains. Now at night, there are these creatures that come out of the woods that look like they're regular humans and sometimes even take on the form of people's dead loved ones. However, the creatures are not able to enter any building that has one of these magic talismans placed on the inside of the building hanging by the door. And so at night, in an attempt to lure the people out, they will either knock on the door or stand by the windows of people's houses and basically just taunt them or scare them or try to trick them by looking like a dead relative and get them to either open a door and let the creature in, or just get the person to come outside so that they can kill them. And when I mean kill them, I don't mean like just like, I don't know, quickly snap their neck or something. No, these monsters are vicious. They will literally tear every organ in your body out through your asshole. All right, so now that we're all on the same page here, if anything I just said about the show sounds interesting to you and you want to check it out, I'm about to get into spoiler territory. So if you don't want to be spoiled, click off the video, go watch the show, and then come back here and check out the video so that we can all share in the pain together of this tragic ass episode that I'm about to dive into. Now, in the show, the Matthews family kind of serves as our main family that acts as the viewer's POV on all of the town's weird, freaky shit that's going on. And in the last episodes of season 2, the family's daughter, Julia Matthews, ends up coming down with like some kind of inexplicable like coma-like condition where she's like in a coma. So in a desperate attempt to find an answer or a cure for their daughter, the mother of the family, Tabitha Matthews, ventures off into the forest. Because you see, in the forest, there are a ton of just weird things that usually are beneficial to the townsfolk. Like, for example, that's where they found the magic talismans that they use to ward off the creatures at night. There's these magical trees out in the forest that if you go into the hole, there's like a hole in the tree. If you go into that hole, it'll teleport you to another part of the forest. There's also been just random caches of food out in the middle of the woods, just seemingly ready for people to take and eat. There's just a bunch of weird, anomalous, magical forest shit going on out there. And so Tabitha goes out there in a hope that maybe there's something out there that could help cure her daughter, or at least give her answers to what's happening to her daughter right now. Also, by the end of season 2, it's revealed that all of the town's crops that they use for their food has been hit with some type of anomalous like blight that's come and basically killed their entire crop of food for the winter. So now the town is basically out of food. And I only give you guys that context because the food crisis is going to be a major plot device for this episode. All right, so finally, let's get into the episode and why it's so fucking tragic. Kicking off the episode, we have the father of the Matthews family, Jim Matthews, concerned about his wife's well-being because she's been gone in the woods for about a day or two, and the creatures specifically come out of the woods every single night. And like I said at the beginning of this video, they are not friendly to humans at all. They are, in fact, very merciless. They waste like no time doing awful, horrible things to you. So as Jim is trying to get himself ready to go out into the woods, the sheriff, Boyd, comes up to him and tells him to basically, you know, stay in town because it's dangerous in the woods, and that it's most likely that his wife is dead. Now, Jim rebuts Boyd by saying that Boyd has gone out into the woods and has survived out there for days on end, throughout nights and days. So there's a chance that his wife is still alive. Now, again, a little bit more context. Boyd is the show's just badass protagonist that is able to survive the worst of the worst and anything that gets thrown at him. So he, in not so direct of a phrasing, tells Jim that he's just built different. Your wife's not me, bro. She's not me. She's not that guy type of thing. That's basically what Boyd says in a nicer way. Unable to stop Jim from going to look for his wife, Boyd's deputy, Kenny Lou, elects for himself to go with Jim. That way he can kind of ensure that everyone comes back alive. Now, for this episode to really hit for anyone who hasn't been watching the show, I need to give y'all a little bit of Kenny's history in the town and in the show as a whole. So Kenny is a first-generation Chinese American who ended up trapped in the town with his two elderly parents. Kenny has that plucky, wide-eyed character archetype where he's always trying to do the right thing and look on the bright side of things, which means you know exactly what's about to happen to his character throughout this show. Kenny spends a lot of the show trying to take care of his parents while simultaneously taking on the responsibilities of being a sheriff's deputy in this town where monsters come out to kill people. His dad, Bing Chan Lu, has rapidly spreading dementia, and so you can imagine how that is a major issue in this town where monsters come out at night to trick and kill you by looking like your dead family members. Now, Kenny's mother, Tian Chen Lu, is the strong matriarchal type who had to step up for the family as her husband's mental health declined. Tian Chen is also the owner-operator of the town's only diner, which offers free meals to residents in the morning and I believe in the afternoon or in the evening, one or the other. But she offers breakfast and I think another meal throughout the day for people who need it. Pretty early on in season 1, Kenny's father gets killed when one of the other townsfolk, Sarah Myers, leaves the front door open, allowing the monsters into the clinic building where Bing Chan stays during the nights. Because since Bing Chan's dementia is so aggressive, Kenny and his mom have a hard time watching him at night, so they've had him put into a clinic building where there are nurses that can keep track of him throughout the night and make sure he doesn't open the door to one of the monsters. Now, Sarah also works with Kenny's mom at the diner as a waiter, and for a while has been hearing voices in her head telling her to sacrifice somebody, and then everyone else will be able to leave the town and go home. So when it was revealed to the Liu family that it was Sarah who intentionally got Bing Chan killed, the emotional blow to the family was not only because of Bing Chan's death, but also because of the betrayal from Sarah. She was essentially treated like another family member to the Lius. Fast forward now 3 seasons later, and Kenny has gone through some shit, okay? He's still got his plucky, silver lining kind of demeanor, and he's still that lovable character, but he's definitely going to need some hefty amounts of therapy if he ever makes it out of this town. Getting back to Jim and Kenny in the present, as they begin to set off into the woods, news of the looming food crisis begins to make its way around to the residents of the town, causing an obvious panic. And with the only known stockpile of food left in town being in Tian Shen's basement for the diner, a group of the residents form outside of Tian Shen's house and force their way in so that they can take the rest of the stockpiled food that's in her basement. Now, while that is happening, on the other side of town, another group of residents, particularly a guy named Randall Kirkland. I swear to God, it's always a fucking Randall, isn't it? So Randall is kind of like the leader of this little group who are attempting to take what little livestock the town has left to slaughter them for meat. Now, Randall has always been a rebellious little asshole since he's come to the town in season 2. He is essentially the conspiracy theorist character who's gone through the whole, you guys are trying to trick me, you guys are all in on it, accusing the townsfolk of trying to deceive him, to the, okay, this is actually all legit and real, but I still hate you all type of character arc. He's just that guy that you want to see get punched in the face or get his comeuppance one way or another in this show, which he does get a few times. So, I mean, there is that satisfaction of watching him get beat up like several times, but again, different video for a different episode. Boyd is eventually able to defuse the situation with Randall and the goat he's trying to take for reasons.
Negative. Tell the men we're going across.
But Colonel Goatbanger,
No, we need to do this for strategy.
And assures everyone else that the town's leaders are working on a solution to the food crisis, but they need to leave the livestock alive because it's the only sustainable source of food they have right now in the form of milk and eggs. As night falls, the residents of the town bunker down as usual, and Kenny and Jim are able to find a hut out in the woods where they can hang a talisman on the inside of the doorway to ward off any would-be creatures for the night. Back in town and under the cover of night, we get to see a gang of the creatures open the barn doors, releasing all of the animals out into the streets of the town. Boyd is the first person to notice this as he sees a cow walking up the street past his police station. Now, Boyd is a man of action, so he does not take a second to run out into the street to start herding basically all of the farm animals back towards the barn to, you know, make sure they don't wander off into the forest. However, doing so obviously draws the attention of the monsters who set this trap, but also many of the residents who are in their homes looking out their windows watching this whole thing play out. This is when a few other townsfolk come out of their house to help Boyd, one of whom is Kenny's mom, Tian Chen. The monsters are able to effectively corner Boyd, Tian Chen, and the cow that they've been herding and instantly kill the cow by slitting its throat. And deciding to cut their losses, Boyd and Chen turn around and run into the barn, closing the doors with Boyd placing his talisman that he took from inside the police station out of his pocket and placing it on the barn doors to secure the barn for the night. And this, folks, is where your heart utterly drops into your asshole. Because once Boyd closes the doors and puts the talisman on them to secure the building, a bunch of creatures start coming out from like hiding places inside the barn. Because the talismans only work at keeping the creatures out of the barns. They don't do anything else. If a creature is inside your house and you put the talisman on the door, no new creatures can come inside, but the creatures that are already inside aren't going to be harmed by the talisman. So they essentially had set up a multi-layered trap here where the townsfolk kind of lose either way. If the townsfolk didn't come out and herd the animals, they would have wandered off into the night. And if they did, then essentially they would have been trapped in the barn one way or the other. Now, wanting to send a message to Boyd for stuff he's been doing in season 1 and season 2 that has kind of been fucking up the plan of the monsters or the leader or whatever is in control of this place, the creatures use Boyd's handcuffs to cuff him to one of the wooden structural beams of the barn, and then they slowly begin to kill Tian Chen by ripping her apart in front of him. Now, I haven't mentioned it yet, but Tian Chen only speaks Cantonese. She understands a bit of English, but she only speaks in Cantonese. Feeling completely helpless and hopeless, all Boyd can really do at this point is try to comfort Tian Chen the best he can with words of comfort as she's literally ripped apart by these creatures. All right, so I need to pause here for a quick second for anyone who hasn't watched the show, because to you, this is just another random character death that doesn't really have any meaning. But for people who have watched the show up until this point, Tian Chen and Kenny have essentially been major main characters for the show and have been in either all the episodes or almost every episode, with Tian Chen even taking in the Matthews family after their house collapsed due to more freaky town shit that maybe I'll cover in another video. Of all the characters in the show, Tian Chen was not only clearly the biological mother of Kenny, but she was the mother of like the town. She was like the heart of the town. Everyone loved her. Everyone had a good rapport with her for the most part. And so for her to die in such an aggressive and gruesome way just really hits you as a viewer, especially in this first episode. In like the first maybe 15 minutes, you are not seeing it coming and this completely blindsides you. And the whole time you are just hoping that something or someone comes in to save her. Spoiler alert, Doesn't happen. Then, of course, you have Kenny, who isn't even in town right now because he's off with Jim in an attempt to help save Jim's family. So you can imagine that when Kenny does come back to learn about his mother's death, it's going to hit like a truck. And when I say hit like a truck, I'm talking like Autobots roll out, Optimus Prime size truck. Okay, like Kenny already felt some responsibility when his dad died because he wasn't there to protect his dad. So in Kenny's eyes, he has essentially lost both of his parents due to his absence from the town, all because he decided to go help someone else. So now as morning hits the town, one of the residents that was helping Boyd during the night comes rushing out to check on Boyd and Tian Chen in the barn, and we get to see Boyd, who is still cuffed to the beam, reciting a sentence to himself in Cantonese, and across from him is the mutilated body of Tian Chen. Back in the woods with Jim and Kenny, they wake up safe and sound in their hut, and as they begin to continue their journey through the woods, they notice that all around the hut that they just slept in, there is somehow freshly growing vegetables. And this is what I'm talking about, where it's just weird, anomalous shit that happens in the woods that is just not explained. This can't be explained for the most part. Now, I think this was insidiously done by whatever is controlling this place because it entices Jim and Kenny to go back to town to let the residents know of the field of food they just found. This serves a double purpose for the entity that controls this place, since throughout the show, it's been confirmed that the answer or answers to whatever is going on in this town and all the weird shit that's happening can be found out in the woods. It's also been shown that whatever controls this place doesn't want people to know anything about the town or what's going on, so it will obscure its true motives from the townsfolk and will use different kinds of tactics to prevent them from traveling too far into the woods. So having this source of food just magically show up overnight for Jim and Kenny gives them a reason to put their journey deeper into the woods on hold and gets Kenny back home to learn about his mom, which will probably ruin his day, to say the least. It's also been made just abundantly clear throughout the show that the creatures and whatever controls this place is actively enjoying the suffering of the people that is trapped in this town. And so yeah, with this new food source, Jim and Kenny do just that. They head back to town, which is where we get the utterly heartbreaking scene of Kenny finding out about his mom. As Kenny comes rushing into town with a bag full of food to a handful of residents and Boyd standing out in the street after having freshly just put Tian Chen's body in the chapel, Kenny begins to notice that something is a little bit off with everybody. And so he begins asking them, "Where is my mom?" And once the look of grief starts to wash over their faces, you can visibly see the pieces like come together in Kenny's mind as his world just fucking shatters around him. It's so heartbreaking. Like, it's hard for me to explain it in words. And so turning towards his house, as it is one of the first houses located right at the entrance of the town, Kenny begins yelling out in Cantonese to his mother inside the house, hoping to hear her response, but we all know he's waiting for an embrace that's not coming. However, in the lead up to Tian Chen's funeral, Kenny has this kind of scorched earth mental breakdown as he plans to go out into the woods to burn the only known place where the creatures live. In a past episode, it was discovered that the creatures actually live underground in caves and tunnels that are underneath the town, with the entrance to these tunnels being located somewhere out in the woods. And so Kenny plans to fill up jugs of moonshine because they have a moonshine distill in the town as well. So he plans to fill up jugs of moonshine and, you know, firebomb the whole entrance of the cave, or maybe go in there himself. He doesn't really go into detail, but he's got jugs of moonshine and he's gonna burn down the whole freaking place. Boyd eventually catches him in the act of filling jugs of moonshine and pretty quickly catches on to what he's doing, and all he says is, "Need a hand, bud." Now, as the two are standing outside of the entrance to the creature's tunnels, this is where Kenny makes a comment to Boyd about how his mother must have felt so alone and afraid in her final moments, and that's when Boyd reveals to Kenny that he was there when she died. Now, if you're thinking that Boyd was trying to hide this information from Kenny or whatever, it doesn't really come off that way in the show. It was more so the fact that Kenny came back to town, found out his only remaining parent and his world was gone, and he didn't want to talk to anybody. So this is the first time Boyd is even having the chance to speak with him. So Boyd tells Kenny that he was there when his mom died and how the creatures wanted to make him watch Tian Chen's death, and then he attempts to recite what Tian Chen had said to him in Cantonese. And upon hearing it, Kenny breaks down and loses his resolve because Tian Chen had been telling Boyd to take care of him because now he will be all alone. And Honestly, I don't know if this is doing it justice, but the whole scene, both this scene with Boyd and Kenny and Tian Chan's death scene, is just so fucking powerful. Like I said at the beginning of the video, the characters are just so well done. They don't feel like characters in a show. They feel like real people that you could possibly know and meet in real life. Like, I'm not one to get all choked up on a TV show or fictional media, because at the end of the day, I know it's fake and everyone here is fine. But when I tell you, when this scene and the scene of Kenny coming back into town and learning about his mother hit me in the feels, it fucking hit like a donkey kick straight to the nuts. After hearing his mother's dying words and translating them back to Boyd, the two share an emotional hug. Boyd kind of breaks down a little bit too, and now Boyd, feeling responsible to take care of Kenny, he gives him a hug and says, "Let's just go home, man," because he's trying to respect and honor the wishes of Tian Chen in her dying moments as best he can. And that, folks, is essentially it. We get a final scene of Tian Chen's funeral service in the town's chapel, and the episode concludes with some more C and B plot stuff. Now, I don't really know if this video does the tragedy of the episode justice for people unfamiliar with the show, because you're missing a lot of character building and a lot of lore that happened in season 1 and season 2 for both Kenny and Tian Chen. Like, these two have suffered so much throughout the show and eventually end up becoming all that each other have. Like, that's her only daughter, that's her only son, and that obviously that's his only mother, and they become each other's rock in the show after Kenny's dad dies. And so to have Tian Chen also die in such a similar way to Bing Chen, it's just utterly heartbreaking to watch. A large part of the tragicness also stems from the fact that Kenny has lost both of his parents now because he wasn't there in their time of need, and he took on the role of being the sheriff's deputy to protect people, and it seems like the people who are most important to him are the ones that he can never seem to protect. And the scene of Tian Chen's death specifically is handled with such impact and such gravitas. Like, you really only get a couple frames of the creatures actually tearing her body apart, with the rest of the scene focusing entirely on Boyd's face, as Tian Chen can be heard in the background screaming in Cantonese, with Boyd trying his best to comfort her with words. Like, you can't really comfort someone when they're being ripped apart, but Boyd can't do anything. He's stuck there. He feels, you can see the hurt on his face, and it was a hard scene to watch. I'm not gonna lie to y'all. The whole point of this ambush was to basically break Boyd and make him become hopeless, because he's been doing too much and ruining too much of the creature's plans. And it hasn't been made clear yet whether that worked for Boyd, but for me as a viewer, it definitely shattered a little bit of my hope. And so yeah, that's gonna do it for this one. Make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and definitely sound off in the comments below if this show is something you'd like to see more of on the channel. If you want me to cover more episodes, maybe I'll start from season 1 or something. I don't know, maybe I'll jump around the show. But yeah, let me know if you want to see more of this down below. Also, let me know if you're watching this show and what your theories are, because there's a lot of mysteries, and I have some theories and I think I'm going to do a video on theories of what the hell's going on in this show. So let's get into a discussion down below. I love talking about stuff like this. And yeah, with that, I'm gonna get out of here.